Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Thursday morning, progressives. Chins up, shoulders back. Let's get in this fight. Welcome to the December 4th, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, heartlandsignal.com, and YouTube. You can also email me at richard@wcpt820.com. And by the way, I have been receiving the emails from you guys, and I know I got a little bit of work to do to get some caught up, so I will make certain to get that knocked out today and tomorrow, just to let you know. I haven't missed them. I've just been, doing a ton of things, so we'll get that squared away for you guys. Follow me on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Spoutable, Substack, and Threads. And you can catch all of our shows, of course, by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, as well as Amazon and a few others. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews, Joan Esposito live, local, and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. So that's why you make your way over there to all of our places and spaces. Speaking of Heartland Signal, let me give you kind of a quick rundown of some of the things that are there right now. Of course, we know the race in Tennessee ended in the way in which it did. Afton Bain did not win, but moved the needle significantly. So we've got a good article over there about the Tennessee congressional special election. Mandela Barnes has announced that he is running for the governor's seat in Wisconsin. Democrat who's running, and many people had been not speculating, but kind of predicting that he would run, and so now that's a reality, and we're going to look forward to that. We're going to work real hard to get him on the show at some point, and we'll keep you guys posted. There is a very, very good segment there on the conversations that we've had with some of the folks running in Kentucky, as in Representative McGarvey. Also conversations that Joan Esposito's had with Joyce Vance from Sisters-in-Law. And there's one that you'll really, I think, appreciate, and that's, speaking of Wisconsin, U.S. Representative Derek Van Orden struggled to answer some questions on CNN with Breonna Keeler when it came to Trump pardoning the convicted drug trafficker Juan Orlando Hernandez. So these are some great pieces and great articles over at heartlandsignal.com. So you'll want to check those out as part of your day, as part of what you do. But there you go. On today's show, as we're getting things lined up and let you know, we've got an individual from the Disabled American Veterans Association I really want to talk to about get his thoughts on some military things that are happening, but also just talking about disabled American veterans, which will be a great conversation. Dan Clare will be with us in the 6:30 hour. And then from Groundwork Collaborative, Liz Pancotti will be joining us at the 7 o'clock hour, which I'm excited about. Liz always brings us updates on what's happening when it comes to budgeting and what's happening when it comes to a policy in Washington and how that impacts us in our local communities. And then Shaughnessy Naughton will be here to talk as well about policy and also about things that are happening in Washington and outside of Washington. And she is we've had both Liz and Shaughnessy on before. Shaughnessy is a believer that we need to have more scientists in political office or in elected office. So we'll be able to chat with her this morning. So looking forward to having each of our three guests hanging with us. We'll bring you some Choose Views news after the break and a couple of other current events that I'll just give you guys as updates as to what's happening out there. But right now, check this out, progressives.
All 214 House Democrats have signed the discharge petition. that will force an up or down vote. All we need are 4 House Republicans to join us. There are 219 of them. All we need are 4. Dozens have said that they were prepared to work with Democrats to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits in the aftermath of the Trump Republican shutdown ending. The Trump Republican shutdown's over, and now we've got a vehicle here in the House. All we need are 4 Republicans to join us, and we can prevent tens of millions of people from having dramatically increased health insurance costs.
So check this out, guys. Of course, that was Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. So 4 Republicans. So, we know that the shutdown was ended because 8 Democrats decided to vote with the Senate to end the shutdown, and a lot of heat was taken for that. And I was not happy that they were being perceived as folding, etc. And rather than but, and as I said then, I believe that the strategy was to get to where we are right now, without more pain for people during the holiday season. So the calculus is moving forward, and is at that precipice where, if the Republicans now do the right thing, 4 Republicans do the right thing for the country. This is the question that I would ask any of the 219 Republicans. Who is it going to hurt to keep the Affordable Care Act subsidies and credits in place? Who is it actually going to hurt if you vote to do that? It shouldn't have to take 4. There should be 40 that say, you know what, I've got folks in my congressional district, Henry, that it's more important for me to make sure that they're taken care of than it is for me to try to kiss the behind of Donald Trump or gain favor with him or anybody else in the Republican Party. My constituents matter more. And so when I've talked about we can't go after Democrats all the time for not getting certain things passed or bringing certain things to the table. Bringing things to the table, I'll pause on that. Bringing certain items, issues, bills to the table, maybe the Democrats could do more bring more legislation is the word I was looking for. Sorry about that. I agree with you. But when it comes to something like this, the Republicans should be looking at the folks in their congressional districts. There's no two ways about it. There's no, we've got to wait and see what Donald is going to say and do, who he might threaten, and, if he's going to talk about primarying us, all that garbage. If you get primaried, they have to support that person with some money, and they've got to tell some truth about why they're primarying you, Republican congressional official. So it's not even taking a chance, really. It's not even that. I guess one could say it's having the guts to stand up to, the White House, but ultimately have the guts to stand for the people that elected you. Donald Trump did not get you elected. And for somebody that's been in let's just put it this way, for somebody that's been in Congress, specifically in the House of Representatives as a Republican, since prior to Donald Trump getting elected the first time, you should by now know your district and be able to go back, Henry, and say, you know what, these folks got me elected before Donald Trump hit the scene politically in 2016. You should be, or 2015, elected in 2016. You should be able to look at your district and say, you know what, what's happening with the benefits? How is it working for you? Is it taking care of your family? Is it doing those things? And if the answer is yes, Republican, then you should say to Donald, listen, man, you're wrong. And collectively do it. That's the thing. That's the thing. Be able to say to Trump, you're wrong here. My constituent, are you going to pay their medical bills? No, because you can't even pay the bills for that you had as a quote unquote developer. So that's, but see, I know I'm asking a lot for Republicans, but I'm with Minority Leader Jeffries in this. It's 4 Republicans. It should be 40, if not more, that say this is going to benefit the folks in my district. And sometimes it's too simple, or maybe I oversimplify it. That, to me, would be political strength, is to say to Donald Trump, you're wrong. And I'm going to say it publicly. You might be right on some other things, but in this case, you're wrong. And, play a little hardball. You were wrong in your marriages, dude. You obviously cheated at least twice. So you were wrong there. So don't tell us you can't be wrong about, what's right for my community. But, again, that's me. That goes back to what Rico and Rick and I were talking about in terms of being in those press squabbles or press meetings that would turn into a squabble. So that's all I'm saying. I'm with Minority Leader Jeffries. Four Republicans need to recognize that their districts mean more than what's going on in the White House. And if you were to get some sort of, threat from the White House and whatever about primarying you, then make it public. See, that's what you do. That's how you fight a bully. You make it public. So this is what the White House is now saying now, because I stood up for the folks in my district. They want to primary me because I didn't kiss the ring. Call a press conference. Do a town hall and let your folks know, listen, I'm going to vote for this because it's the right thing for you guys. Be damned what the White House says. And by the way, they're threatening me with a primary because I didn't fall in line with them. Okay. That's how I would be advising my congressional person if I were part of that person's team. Now, the other thing I want to say about this is Hakeem Jeffries has had, he's been on, how do I want to put this? He's had criticisms from both sides of the caucus, and I mean that in terms of the people that observe all this, the us's of the world, in terms of he needs to be stronger, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. And I've been one of those people. But I've also been willing to say he's getting certain things done now. He's standing up strong. He's pushing back. This is the third time this year, Henry, that he's had his caucus lined up. Every member of the Democratic House of Representatives have fallen in line with Minority Leader Jeffries. So as much as people want to criticize him and get upset with him talking with his hands, he's had that caucus lined up. And that's important. And it's important because it's when you look at the things that are not getting done by the Republicans, that are getting done by the Democrats, it's because of the leadership that we're showing. And again, the standard, we know we're not perfect, but listen, he's got that caucus lined up and moving in the right direction. So, we can criticize all we want to and we need to, but when they get certain things done a certain way, and yeah, we know it's their job and they don't get a special medal for all that. Listen, I understand that. But in times like this, we have to acknowledge when see, I look at that as a win. When we've got all of our congressional leaders lined up doing what they're supposed to do, that's a win, and we have to acknowledge that. I believe, when we don't acknowledge that, then we're just like everybody else, just finding a reason to moan and complain and whine about something. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this is that time when you go, okay, we got to support our leaders like never before, help them with their imperfections, and then be able to help them move the ball, quote unquote, down the field. We are going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
All right. We are back, guys. Thanks for being with us this morning. 773-763-9278. A couple of quick Chew's Views news items on this December 4th, 2025. Mortgage rates dip, but borrowers barely budge. See, that alliteration can get you every time, Henry. Your brain goes, I got to get that right. But borrowers are barely budge. All right. Current borrowers would-be home buyers are more likely to be unmoved by last week's dip in the mortgage rates. Overall, mortgage application volume declined 1.4% compared to the prior week. During that same period of time, finance applications fell 4% and applications for a mortgage to buy a home climbed 3%. According to Joel Kahn, Vice President and Deputy Chief Economist at the Mortgage Bankers Association, quote, we continue to see mixed results each week as the broader economic outlook remains cloudy. Uncertainty. Wealthy shoppers flock to Dollar Tree. Now this one, check this out. Discount retailer Dollar Tree beat quarterly estimates and raised its yearly guidance on Wednesday, driven by bargain seekers across the income spectrum. With consumers tightening their belts, Dollar Tree saw a surge in wealthier shoppers lured by deals on higher priced items like home decor. Of the roughly 3 million or more households it said it served in the third quarter compared to last year, almost 2/3 earned over $100,000 annually. But low-income shoppers increased their spending too, as profits rose to $244.6 million from $233 million a year earlier. Private firms shed 32,000 jobs in November, and that's not a shock. The U.S. labor market took an unexpected hit in November, with private companies cutting 32,000 jobs, according to data released yesterday by payroll data processing company ADP. Economists had predicted a gain of roughly 40,000 jobs. The losses, however, were felt most acutely at businesses with fewer than 50 employees, which lost 120,000 jobs, the steepest decline since March of 2023. Larger businesses saw a net gain of 90,000 workers. The figures, however, last year expected on jobs before the Federal Reserve's meeting next week may increase the likelihood of a rate cut. Delta tallies up its cost during the shutdown. And this is shocking. Delta has crunched the numbers on the government's shutdown's drag on its business, saying it cost about $200 million in pre-tax profit. The airline and its rivals were forced to slash flights during the historic 43-day government standoff. Though Delta and JetBlue have signaled that demand remains healthy in the aftermath, Delta CEO Ed Bastian told Bloomberg and the mandated disruption canceled 2,000 flights, and that holiday bookings slowed as travelers became more cautious. But demand is now back in line with their expectations. And last but not least, Nike nixes 2 top roles in the C-suite. Nike is revamping its C-suite structure as part of CEO's Elliott Hill's recent turnaround plan, according to the Wall Street Journal. The sports giant is restoring certain executive titles while eliminating others, including Chief Technology Officer and Chief Commercial Officer. Hill says the changes are meant to remove layers of management and accelerate its restructuring efforts to refocus Nike on athletes and sports. So I got a little thought about that. I read some supplemental material about what's happening there with Nike, not only in these cuts that they're making or the realignment that they're making, but one of the things that not a lot of people are talking about, at least I haven't seen it, and I've been looking hard to find more information on this. So, right now, with Trump being in the White House and Trump's administration and all the things that the Trump administration is doing, the Trump regime is doing to cut and slash and make these crazy decisions, these executive orders, the tariff taxes, all these things, DEI, everything that you can imagine. There are some companies who are, or let me put it this way. Let me clear this up. there are some executives with companies that are willing to kiss the ring for favor. And we've seen who a lot of them are, and we've seen what they've gotten as payoff. I mean, this deal with Paramount went through because Larry Ellison decided he was going to side with Trump and kiss the ring. And so here we go. Now Disney's being approached, or has been approached for the last month or so, by Paramount to become part of that, or to be consolidated into all of that. And many people are pushing back on it. There's others. I mean, we've seen where Bezos is. We see where obviously Musk is. We see where many others are. Zuckerberg is even, he's there at the inauguration. But there's one company that for the longest time we've sort of thought had its head on straight, and I still say that the company does, but the CEO may be a little questionable in terms of the bending of the knee, and that's Nike. Nike's remained pretty strong when it comes to its approach to DEI, just to make the statement. But Phil Knight, the CEO, has kind of waffled a little bit back and forth in terms of its support of Trump and the GOP. And so I would want to know, and I'm trying to pull data and information to get a little bit more to talk about in this space, but I would wonder how many people that pay attention to this have seen that Phil Knight has become a little bit too cozy with Trump and the GOP. And if that's the case, how much that's impacting their business. Because Nike's business model or Nike's approach to the marketplace has changed. And as a result of that, I think that they have lost, I don't think about this. I don't have to think about this. I know it. They've lost market share to the other shoe companies, other athletic and sports apparel companies. And they did lose focus off of athletes. They started focusing on, less about athletes and athletic performance. And they may have gone away from some, not brands, but branding with certain people that has impacted their business. Again, the data is out there to show that Nike's numbers are down. And I think that they made this change because they recognize that it's got to happen sooner than later. But they're struggling right now. And I wonder if, because of the things at the top, how people are perceiving the company. And it's a curiosity for me. And, like I said, when I saw this article, I wanted to speak on it, but I'm going to continue to do some more research to find out what transitions may have been taking place and how, if they're in any way tied to the CEO. So there you go. All right, guys. I'm always thinking, I'm always curious, Henry, I wonder if this has had an impact, or I wonder if this is why certain things are going on. And it's a question I think is a fair one to ask, because Nike's a brand that's been with us for a long time. And so how is the leadership there affecting how the consumer perceives the company? And is it one that consumers can still hang with? So we'll see what happens in that space. All right, let's talk about some current events. It's Thursday. The blue wave is building. And is it unstoppable right now by Republicans? And when I say that, I'm talking about Republicans that are elected. Are they at risk? And there's a reason why 23 Republicans have decided to not run again. There's a reason why 4 senators are not running again. It's not just because of their age. I don't think they may want to give I want to spend more time with my family, blah, 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 kind of response. But 23 House members on the Republican side, the GOP, aren't running in 2026. And so, as I said yesterday, the Democrats have a huge opportunity to direct the conversation in all 23 of those districts and those 4 Senate seats. Why not get after it right now? Don't wait. And this blue wave that's building, it may be. I mean, we can't rest on our laurels. We know that, but at the same time, we have to be willing to take this momentum and run with it. And this blue wave or this blue movement not only is real because of what we've seen in some of these special elections and smaller elections, but Republicans are paying attention to it, we can tell. Let's see. I think that with what's happening up in the state of Minnesota, that that Americans have got to be willing to reject Trump's racist attacks against Somalians. There is no reason that a president, a sitting U.S. president in today's environment, should be saying the things that he said about folks from Somalia in anywhere in the country, but certainly the density and the population that's there in the state of Minnesota. And once again, this is Republicans using and allowing for racist dog whistles to persist. So that's it's unacceptable. We'll see where it goes. We'll see who decides to step up. But we as a country should not be allowing a president to use the racist dog whistles any longer. He's gotten away with it far too long. And just like him calling someone piggy or stupid, referring to people from Somalia in the way in which he has, this is, America, you gotta ask yourself this question. And if you're a white American in this country, you got to ask yourself this question: why hasn't he said anything like that about people from a European country? Just use an example, Poland, because Poland has such a strong population in the United States. He hasn't said that about the Polish community, and he shouldn't. That's my point. It's not that he should suddenly find another white ethnic group to go after. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying he shouldn't be saying it at all about any groups of people. That's like one of the last things that a president of the United States should be saying is something racist or biased about a community. But yet the Republicans stand behind them, the GOP and the voters. See, this is I'm done just quote unquote going after Republican elected officials. I'm coming after the voters, because the voters are the ones that keep electing the people that are hurting them and making these kinds of statements. You can't be a person that calls himself an American and a Christian and throughout the week, as my father used to say, Monday through Saturday, out there raising hell and then showing up in church on Sunday to ask for forgiveness. How about just not raising the hell in the first place? And if you are calling yourself a Christian and you're allowing your elected officials to make racial and sexist statements and biased statements against another human being created by your God, then you're the problem. You are the problem. If you as an individual citizen in this country, a voter, if you will sit back and allow your elected officials on any level to make racist, sexist, biased statements about a child of God, and you call yourself a Christian, you're the problem. Because you're allowing that bias and your bias to be more important than the so-called faith that you say you follow. And that's a fact. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. You are a hypocrite in that space. So as much as we can, and I say this often, be upset with the elected officials, we have to be willing to look in the mirror and say, how many times have I been one to foster or allow these racist bias statements to happen, these sexist statements to happen? So look at yourself. And this is something that, can be put at the laps of any person, left or right politically, but certainly those on the right. Check yourself before you get out there and talk about how awful the politicians are. Well, if you voted for them and they're creating this, causing this carnage and saying these things, that's on you. It really is. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Richard Chew's got his eyes on the truth.
And you're right where you need to be.
This is Chew's Views.
Hey guys, shaking it up here this morning. That doesn't mean Henry and I are dancing around in the studio shaking it up. I got to give a shout out to the guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, Henry, that for a few months now has been doing the dance in parking lots to the song by the Gap Band. That's to me is just fascinating how it's caught on. I saw this couple, a British couple that were clearly in their mid to late 70s, maybe a little bit older, I'm not sure, that they were doing the dance in their dining room. They had moved the table to the corner, Henry. So, I just think it's cool to see that in the craziness that we're in, just seeing that people are taking up with this sort of new thing that's happening. So anyhow, Henry and I are not dancing in the studio, although you all might think we should. We'd have to charge for that. So we have been blessed to have so many wonderful people on this show and certainly on our station at large. And we don't talk enough, in my opinion. We try to get in as much conversation as we can about our veterans. I'm not that guy that says, thank you for your service. I'm one that says, let's do something to make sure that the service was meaningful and that the sacrifice that many Americans, many men and women who serve don't understand. And oftentimes it leads to disabilities, men and women who served that were injured, maybe suffering from PTSD and the like. But there's a gentleman out there who has served and who is an outreach officer and made sure that once he left the military, he was going to actually do something tangible to impact the lives of veterans. That would be the excuse me, thought I was going to sneeze. I didn't want to sneeze on the air. Disabled Veterans American Chief Communications and Outreach Officer Dan Clare. Good morning, Dan, and thanks for being with us this morning on Chew's Views.
Hey, Richard, thank you so much for making the time for veterans this morning. We really appreciate it.
Well, Dan, listen, I'm not that guy. I have two siblings, my sister and brother-in-law, who are retired from the military and the Marine Corps. And, they said to me years ago that the saying, thank you for your service, although appreciated, what really matters is doing things to help support those who have served and what they're trying to do once they are out of the military. And the veterans are oftentimes the ones that don't get the care, don't get the support, don't get the love. And I'm not asking you to be partisan, but the current administration doesn't seem to really give a damn about making sure that you guys are. But you have stepped up, man, and I'm so proud of what you've been doing. It took me a little bit of time to do some research and learn more about your program. But tell us about the DAV and tell us about what you're currently working on. What's kind of your, top of the shelf item right now?
Oh, absolutely. DAV, Disabled American Veterans, we're a nonprofit. We provide a lifetime of support for veterans, all generations, their families, survivors. We're helping them access health care, access the benefits they earn, representing them, of course, on Capitol Hill. And we're connecting them with meaningful employment. We believe that veterans have the potential. We believe in, we want them to achieve their maximum professional potential. So we also are working with veterans on the entrepreneurship level, and it's really exciting.
Talk about the work, not the work, but talk about, you had this great jobs fair back in November. I know we were trying to get you on prior to that, but scheduling, just as you know, things get tight. But tell us a little bit about the virtual job fair that you guys had.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it was a great career fair. We have another one actually coming up for the Central Region next Tuesday, December 9th.
No kidding.
We want people to check that out. That's 11 to 3 p.m. Of course, you're going to see a lot of great employers there. Chicago Police Department's going to be there, and that's one of the jobs I think that a lot of people associate with the military. But there's a lot of other great companies that are going to be there. Cisco Systems is going to be there. Federal agencies galore, always involved. Department of Energy, Post Office, Customs and Border. We think of those jobs a lot of times with military too. But we have over 2,000 jobs that are available through PNC Bank. There's a lot of companies have hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. They're going to be there, and they want to hire veterans. And like you were saying, you talk about a substantive way that you can affect your bottom line and do the right thing for veterans, that's hiring people. And we're really grateful to work with a lot of great employers who are going to be there and really just want to hire veterans. More than 53 employers are going to be there and other educational resources. So we're really excited about that event.
What kind of funding is out there when it comes to a group like yours and an outreach program like yours? How do you guys stay afloat? How are you able to navigate and manage the programs that you provide for so many veterans in America?
I mean, we rely. We're non-governmental. We're a charity. We rely on private individual donations, and we get some corporate support as well. We're very proud of how we take care of the money that donors give us. 85 cents of every dollar that is donated to DAV goes towards programs like our employment program and like our entrepreneurship program. And we just, we're working, hustling, trying to make sure that we're treated like charity. And that we're able to leverage those companies who want to help people and connect them with veterans. And it's such a rewarding thing because it's a win-win for the employer and the veteran.
Yeah, and that speaking of the employer, how can employers and business leaders that want to give back and participate, let's just say, and I'm going to position it this way, maybe employing isn't something that they can do, but how can employers then be a part of your system and your program?
Well, employing is one way. We have folks who are involved in a variety of ways. We work with companies a lot of times on volunteer initiatives where a company has a give back day or something like that, and we're happy to partner with them. We have 1,200 chapters across country, tons of chapters around Chicago. We're happy to pair them up and give companies an opportunity to give back in a way that is substantive, that's hands-on, that gives the employees a good feeling and provides a real substantive service for veterans.
Yeah, that's really that. So many people don't know what can be done, and that's why I wanted to ask that question. What about, entrepreneurs? You really have kind of found a way to say, yes, it's about creating opportunities and a flow through for employment. But talk a little bit about your entrepreneurs program and what you're doing in that space.
Well, DAV, we've always been a benefits-oriented organization in terms of making sure veterans achieve justice, that they're getting their benefits. We've always been involved in jobs. We've always tried to advocate for training programs, for employment opportunities for veterans. We're working on these career fairs, and we looked at that and we said, well, if we worked with entrepreneurs, we could turn veterans into benefits providers and job creators. And that's what was so exciting to us about DAV Patriot Bootcamp. That's our entrepreneur program. We have a cohort coming up February 11 through 13. We have Rob Miller is one of the people from Chicago area who is just one of our greatest volunteer mentors. He's a former Army officer and serial entrepreneur, and he's donating his time to support programs and initiatives like Patriot Bootcamp. Our next cohort, February 11th through 13th, in Myrtle Beach. That's not the worst time probably to get out of the Chicago area for a few days. You can get involved, but you can visit us at jobs.dav.org to learn about all these programs, learn about our entrepreneurship, learn how you can get involved. We even have an employer recognition program. So those folks who are employing veterans, who are retaining them, who are supporting veterans in the community, we want to recognize them as well and make it easier for them to recruit veterans.
You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We are talking with Dan Clare, Chief Communications and Outreach Officer for Disabled American Veterans. Dan, we've been talking about the program. We've been talking about the things that you're going to be doing and that you are doing. But let's talk a little bit about you, your background and your ascent to where you are now. Tell us a little bit about your military background and how you made the pivot. What was on your mind when you decided that this was the next chapter in your life?
I was one of those guys who joined the Marine Corps when I was enlisted when I was 17. I'd gone to boot camp, turned 18 in boot camp. I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, got out in Southern California. I was fortunate. I was a journalist. I was a broadcaster in the military. So I was able to get a make a pretty nice transition to advertising in Southern California. But I missed the military. I joined the Air National Guard in California. And then, that was just days before 9/11 happened. So I was able to fly with FEMA teams on 9/11, one of the proudest moments in my military career. Stayed involved with the Guard, deployed in 2007, 2008 to Iraq. While I was in Iraq, of course, I learned about burn pits. And I'm proud that DAV was the charity who brought those to light for the public. And we've been advocating for folks who've been toxic exposed for a lot of years. But that's kind of my military history in a nutshell.
Got it. So external to the military, we know that there are, your primary focus, obviously, is disabled American veterans. But at the same time, because of the work that you're doing, the number of people that are folks with disabilities that are outside of the military. So you're in a unique position and vantage point to be able to see it from the military perspective, but then for people that are not, as it relates to connecting the dots. How have you, I guess the word I want to say, how have you merged that or integrated your work to be able to serve the internal and the external community, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, I think it does. We recognize that spouses and family members are an integral part of the support structure for veterans. Spouses are invited to attend spouses and children are welcome to attend our career fairs because we recognize they're sharing the sacrifice that a veteran has made. So we want to make sure that everyone knows that these opportunities are there for them too. These employers look at them seriously. They recognize, there's been some adversity if you're a military spouse. And another thing that DAV has done, and we've done it through one of the entrepreneurs companies who participate in our entrepreneur program, Patriot Boot Camp, we're working with caregivers. And we're really proud of this program we have offering concierge service to caregivers. Those folks are really represented in terms of the value that they bring to taxpayers. They keep veterans in their homes longer. They ensure the quality of life of veterans. But while they're doing that, they're often doing it at a cost to their own health, to their own professional abilities, capabilities, and potential. So we're working with caregivers as well. And that's one of the new programs we're really excited about, DAV. Caregiver support, visit our website, check that out. If you know a veteran, you can be a referral source, and you can absolutely change someone's life if they need help with benefits, if they need help as caregivers. DAV is there to help. All of our services are offered at no charge. There's no obligation. We just offer the services for free, and we're happy to help.
And that's such a great way of approaching this. There are over if I got my numbers right, there are over 4 million disabled veterans in America. Is that true? Am I even close or no?
No, absolutely. Around 4 million. That's where we're at. DAV has nearly 1 million members who are advocates for them, and we advocate for all disabled veterans. But if there's 4 million disabled veterans that have been changed at varying levels, we know that's 4 million families as well that have been affected through military service. So we're here to support them as well.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking in terms of the connection between those that may not be military, but people that you just know that are disabled that may have a family member that I guess indirectly can benefit from the work that you guys are doing. Transportation, and I'll share a story. There's a gentleman who has been on my show that is a cancer survivor, and he has really been a big advocate. His name is Bill Zdenek, and he actually did serve, but he also is a cancer survivor. And one of the big things that he talks about is transportation is a challenge for those who are cancer survivors to get to treatment, and that, searching and working to get more volunteers to be able to help in that space. Is that something that you guys deal with? I know you deal with it, but how do you go about recruiting more folks to be part of the team or the squad to help when it comes to transportation for disabled American veterans?
Richard, you're helping us with that right now by bringing that up. Thank you so much. DAV provides nearly 250,000 rides to and from medical appointments, VA medical appointments for veterans, and that's a program that relies on volunteers. We donate vehicles. We run a network and those volunteers are making that happen. And you know, some veterans without that transportation, they're just not going to get that care. And that could shorten their duration of their lives. It could definitely shorten the quality of their lives. And we always are looking for volunteers. The people who get involved with that program, and you don't have to be a volunteer or a veteran to volunteer or support veterans. The people who get involved usually tell us they get as much out of the time that they spend with the veterans and the reward of knowing that that veteran is receiving justice, getting the care that they've earned, as they think the veteran gets out of their help.
You know, and that is part of the reason I wanted to ask the question that way, because I've been told by people who volunteer in that capacity that the stories that they get to hear and the experiences that are shared with them as that volunteer, just from driving somebody, because you're spending a little bit of time in the vehicle with that person to get them to and fro, and the stories you hear, and it's been really interesting for me when people have shared with me the stories that they've heard by just being a vessel, a vehicle, to get someone from A to B. And then the quality of the care is oftentimes the quality of life that's sustained is probably as important as making sure that someone doesn't die. I mean, I know that sounds kind of crazy to say it that way, but it's great to know that you guys have. You said 250,000. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, that's how many rides we provide to and from. No cost for the veterans every year. Yeah, those volunteers are incredible, and I mean, hats off. It's harder and harder to find volunteers. COVID really took a shot nationwide at all volunteer opportunities, and we're still building back up to where we were before the pandemic. But yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. If anyone's interested in volunteering, I hate to throw out another URL, but if you visit volunteerforveterans.org. There's a lot of different opportunities for you, and that's just a little bit simpler if you want. If you're interested in helping veterans, please check us out because we need the assistance, and we're going to connect you with some meaningful opportunities to give back and spend some of that quality time with veterans, and it should make you feel good about what you're doing if you're doing that kind of work.
Well, don't feel anything but good about putting it out there, because it's a question that I ask of anyone that's doing work in a volunteer capacity or in a capacity to help people. I always want to make sure that we amplify that. And whether it, one of the things that I try to do, Dan, with the show is to connect some of the dots. And I mean that in terms of what's happening on a local level, what's happening with social organizations and volunteer organizations. It allows people to have some sustainability in their lives. And then when we build on that, it allows those organizations to get stronger. And then that local effort becomes part of a regional effort and then potentially part of a national effort. So for me, it's a real privilege to be able to have you on to talk about this, because, we all know a veteran. We all know one way or another, we know somebody that's a veteran. And then if it happens to be someone that's disabled, then this is an opportunity to kind of connect those dots. So let's take one more run at it and have you let everybody know that's listening how they can get involved, how they can volunteer, how they can contribute to the great work that you guys are doing. Go for it, Dan.
Absolutely. We have a virtual Central Region Career Fair from 11 to 3 p.m. Next Tuesday, December 9th. Check us out at jobs.dav.org for information on that. For information on our entrepreneur program, we need mentors for that program. We need about 50 mentors for every cohort that we have helping entrepreneurs. So if you have a business acumen, that's great. If you're a veteran business owner or you know one, or you know a veteran who needs help with their benefits, send them to jobs.dav.org. We encourage people to hire veterans. There's resources there. An employer guide. There's information on how you can become a certified Patriot employer through DAV. Please visit us there. If you're interested in volunteering, please visit volunteerforveterans.org, and we're happy to help you that way too. You being a referral source, veterans aren't the kind who often ask for help, but you sometimes just see that being a referral source is a true service, and we really appreciate the help of your audience and your help getting the word out.
Absolutely, Dan. It's my pleasure. We do appreciate those who have served, but I always try to do my part in being someone that does something tangible. So thank you for being with us this morning. Dan Clare, y'all, the Chief Communications Officer and Outreach Officer for Disabled American Veterans here in the United States of America. Dan, thanks, man, for being with us. Let's look to having you back on the show when we get into 2026 and talk about what else you might be working on and how we can be a tool to help further your success. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. And December 7th, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day. Thank you for celebrating that with us, too, and marking that occasion. It's an important one. Thank you for helping veterans. You
got it, man. Be well. We'll talk with you soon. Bye now. All right, Henry, I don't know if we'll take we'll take a tiny break, a quick half second break. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for being with us. For me, it's always an honor to have someone talk about the things like Dan just did. And one of the things that I'm going to share a comment that we just received regarding this. And this is really I've said this for a long time, and I didn't know anybody else thought about it the same way, but. Shout out to our listener at 630 says this: DVA is a great organization worthy of everyone's support. Thanks for having this guy on. Thank you for listening, by the way. What we really need is a government that puts this organization out of business. Take this the right way, y'all. By taking proper care of the people who serve once their service is done. Damn. Let that set in for a second. What we really need is a government that puts this organization out of business by taking proper care of the people who serve once their service is done. Now, I don't want to put Dan out of a job or out of activity and work, but that's a way of looking at it. I've been saying for a long time, and those that know me personally have heard me say there's a number of organizations out there that are about providing services and whatnot, all the rest for veterans. But I've always said, why should we even need them? Okay, now I'm not stupid, and I'm certainly not naive. But the reality is, to our listeners' point, if we take proper care of the people who serve once their service is done, then these organizations would not be needed. And so I didn't want to drag Dan down a political, alley to talk about partisan politics necessarily. But at the end of the day, when you look at the real data on this, it's time and time again, the Republicans speak, run and yell about supporting our veterans and support the troops and yada, yada, yada. But it's really ultimately Democrats and Democratic administrations that have been the ones to do that. That's the truth. And again, it's a data-based statement. Historically, Democrats in office on a state, local, regional, national level have been the ones, to get it done for veterans. Not just talking, but walking and making it happen. So I appreciate what you had to say there, 630. By taking proper care of the people who serve once their service is done. Powerful and appropriate words. Let's take care of some let's pay some bills and do some house cleaning here. Quick favor for our listeners, especially the folks who spread the good information. If you've shared something you've heard on WCPT or read on heartlandsignal.com, make maybe a clip or a story or even a moment that cut through the noise. We want to hear from you. We're building a network of people who help their community stay informed, and you might already be one of those folks. It only takes a couple of minutes, and if you fill out a survey, you can enter a drawing for one of five $25 Visa gift cards. Just go to heartlandsignal.com /share and tell us how you pass information along. Again, it's heartlandsignal.com /share. You're a big part of how trustworthy pro-democracy news actually travels. We want to learn from you, so thank you for your participation. Obviously, this is something that we want to do to get you guys involved and get your words and what you see and how you do pass things on. Today on Live, local and progressive, Joan Esposito is going to talk to Virginia Cantor, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Chief Counsel and Director, Democracy Defenders Fund, and Dr. Anthony Douglas, medical resident on track to become a trauma and acute care surgeon and advocate for the Responsibility in Firearm Legislation Act, or RIFL Act. Pat Creetlow, founder and editor of Up North News, and Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwine with 3 stories you might have missed from our digital newsroom. Live, local, and progressive weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT Central, heartlandsignal.com and tune in. And then tonight, driving it home, Patty will be broadcasting live from New Orleans. And our guests include Dr. Christian Lyerly, OBGYN and host of the Christian Lyerly Show on Civic Media. And the show makes its WCPT debut Saturday at 5 p.m. Central. Dan Schaefer, creator of the Recombination area and political editor at Civic Media in Wisconsin. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 Central, WCPT, Heartland Signal. Tune in, YouTube and Facebook. We're out. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
He's not here to yell.
He's here to inform and maybe stir the pot.
This is Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
Yes, stir in the pot. My mother used to say that all the time. She used to say, baby, sometime you got to stir the pot. And I take a little bit of pride in that. So there you go. Thanks for being with us this morning. And thanks so much to Dan Clare for hanging out with us to talk about the disabled American veterans. And I love some of the comments. Let me kind of move the mic over here so I can turn to my computer. Sorry about the background noise, guys. But these are some of the comments coming from you wonderful folks. This comes from Jill up in Evanston. So how about taking care of veterans' families so they don't need SNAP or food drives or collections to make their children's holidays great? You know, support the families so soldiers have one less thing to worry about. That's exactly right, Jill. And thank you for that. A number of you guys have chimed in this space in terms of what we need to be doing. And here's another one from 331. Richard, I've heard you and Eric from the family meeting talk about the veterans, and I agree with you 100%. We shouldn't have to have these types of people that are asking us for money. The money should be coming from us through the government. Again, peel off a percentage of what we spend on weaponry and take care of the folks that are out there fighting, the veterans particularly. That's me. I think that, and here's another thing I've always felt, that I think that military men and women should be paid more, candidly. And just like teachers and public school educators and all the rest, just increase peel off. We spend so much on the defense with weaponry. Okay. What about spending more on the people that are actually serving? The weapons aren't doing any of the work. I mean, you press a button or pull a trigger and they execute some form of enforcement. But how about just pay those men and women more? I don't need to break down the numbers right now. We don't have the time to do that. But that to me is a step toward progress. Pay them more. Frankly, pay our educators more. But in this conversation around military and veterans, pay them more. Make sure their benefits are tight. I mean, this is where Eric and I get frustrated sometimes. We got all this stupid money in this country. I mean, and when I think about this as it relates to, I was talking earlier about corporate leaders. I mean, what the heck with some of these, guys and some gals that decided to bend the knee to Trump, who are these corporate chieftains. Why aren't they not saying, you know what, that we should be collectively working to do better by our veterans? The men and women who prosper from what our country has allowed and provided in terms of freedom. That's another reason why folks like Bernie Sanders get frustrated when he looks at, all this money that is at the top. That money should be shared in a way that's constructive, not in a what's the word I'm looking for? In an altruistic way, but more so in a how do we structure things so that those who have served don't have to be always asking for help. And I think that a lot of times our corporations, they do what they can do, but how about the federal government just change its budgeting when it comes to the after service? I don't know. I get frustrated in this space, and the reason you hear some pauses and breaks in how I'm stating it is that I'm stopping myself from cursing. Not literally, but, I'm just making sure that you guys understand. This is it. When we talk about taking care of our veterans, I agree with what a number of you have sent me so far. How about if we just do it as part of the plan rather than we're always begging folks to support these volunteer organizations? And kudos to the volunteer organizations and those who lead them, like Dan. But there you go, guys. I had to say that. So, all right, let's talk about one of our other little events that's going on. As you guys have heard us saying on my show and on Joan's show, a little bit on Patty, Fry the Coop is Chicagoland's answer to hot chicken. The fast casual chicken shop brings the heat with its simple cooked-to-order menu. Whether you want it crazy hot or no heat, a country fry, the Coop satisfies your fried chicken fix. Signature sandwiches include the Nashville hot chicken and the cheese chicken sandwich. Chicken hot sandwich, as well as donut fried chicken and spicy butter fried chicken. Fry the Coop has 10 locations in the Chicagoland area open daily. Visit frythecoop.com or follow them on Instagram at frythecoop. Contests running on WCPT are open to listeners 18 or older and residents of the greater Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana area. 1 entry per person, 1 winner per household. Void where prohibited by law, and listeners may only win or qualify to win once every 30 days. Complete rules are available at our website, WCPT.com, by clicking on the contest tab. So make your way over there. You might win something. We'll see. All right. We will also be on tomorrow's show, busy again with poet. Our guest will be Suzanne Paola Antonetta, who is a poet and memoirist, which I'm looking for. A memoirist, I should say. Looking forward to talking with her tomorrow. Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast will be hanging out with us. And it is the first Friday of the month, so we'll be talking with Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson with this month with the mayor. And starting next week, the Rick Smith Show will be moving from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. right before my show. And the Gailey Show will be going from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. So just to keep you guys up to speed on some light programming changes here on WCPT. So, all right, let's keep all the papers in order. They're flying all over the place this morning. So, do we have that? Oh, good. Okay, great. Henry was doing his magic here, so I wanted to wait till he took care of some magic. Here's a clip that I want to talk about on the back end that I want you guys to hear that, well, just check this out.
The strikes to blow up these boats in the Caribbean seem illegal enough. Why is it worse? Why is it a qualitatively different scenario? Why is it so much more upsetting to members of Congress that there was a follow-on strike to kill survivors of one of these initial attacks?
Look, that's a very fair question. In my opinion, there's not that much of a difference. I've always felt these boat strikes were illegal for a wide variety of reasons. What seems to have made it different is it has gotten the attention of Republicans in Congress. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get through this crack in this issue here to get a focus on what is a clearly illegal action. I love the fact that you went right to the UCMJ textbook that said this is what we're talking about that you can't do. So out of that crack, I hope, number one, we can pursue this, absolutely, because I think we had a clear instance, if this happened the way it has been reported, of a war crime. But then go beyond that. What's going on with the entire operation? It isn't even really about drugs, it doesn't seem, if Trump is pardoning a major convicted drug dealer from Honduras because he happens to like the political party the guy's with. So this is a crack to get to the wider issue, and I think it's worth focusing on that point you just made. That the reason that it's illegal to hit these two guys when they're clinging to the side of a sinking boat is because they pose no threat to the U.S. or U.S. forces. But the same can be said of that boat before it was hit in the first place. Whatever you think about drugs and cocaine and the impact, that is not a military definition of a threat to U.S. persons and U.S. forces. With Donald Trump, this is about his personal power. And it's also about his 19th century belief in spheres of influence. You know, that the Western Hemisphere is ours. And Petro and Venezuela are refusing to bend the knee to Trump. That's why he's going after them. It's not about drugs. It's about his power over the region. It's the same reason that he's selling out Ukraine to Russia, in this belief of strongman rule and spheres of influence. So this is about much more than one illegal boat strike, and I hope people understand that.
Yeah. Okay. So I said this yesterday, and there's more and more conversation that's coming up around this. First of all, everything that Representative Adam Smith just said is spot on. And, one of the things that's happened in politics is that, we wait when Republicans, quote unquote, when something happens that's bad or wrong, and Republicans step up, we kind of, give them the thank you for stepping up. It's almost like thank you for your service, but thank you for stepping up and doing the right thing. And this is where I come back to we don't have the numbers that we need. We have to get them, and we're working toward them in terms of these special elections and all the rest. But the Republicans are once again the ones that are blocking something from happening. The investigation and the ability to get to the truth about this, it does rest in the laps of the Republicans. And thankfully, that sound from what Representative Smith is saying, they're waking up and coming to the table. Because let's be honest, guys, this is the thing that I said, I believe I said this yesterday, maybe the day before, but it holds true no matter how you look at it. This attack, as illegal as it's being presented as being, there's a couple of things that we've got to hold on to. Let's take a break, and when we come back, I'll talk about that. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
From the headlines to the heart of the city, Richard Chu breaks it all down. You're back on Choose Views.
All right, guys. So before we went to the break, I was talking about this clip that we played from Representative Smith. I'm talking on MS News. Okay. There's three things that came across my mind when I first heard this clip, and then as we've sort of gotten through this week. The illegality of this, whatever that may be, however this plays out, is hopefully we'll get to the truth, and Republicans won't block it and will try to skirt around it. And we already have seen what Hegseth is doing and saying, what Bondi is doing and saying, what Trump is doing and saying, and certainly what Rubio is saying, and even Leavitt. They're all, circling the wagons, and then they're going to try to find out who's left. They're going to dump it in for blame. But here are the three things. Here are three things, and there's more that come to mind for me. And I mentioned this in part yesterday. First one is safety of our troops. Republicans rant on all the time about, protect our troops, love our troops, support our troops. This type of action, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, it's true, puts our troops and our other military operatives at risk in other parts of the world, because we got folks deployed all over the planet. And so when this kind of recklessness, and we can get into the legalities of it, happens, it puts our folks at risk. It just does. And I don't care where you sit on the political spectrum, you got to be honest about this. This sort of, kill them at all cost is just craven behavior. Reckless, all those, we know the legal part is going to be tested, but it's just insanity to do it and then have the world watching and saying, well, I guess that means that if we see some Americans and they act in the right way, we can take them out. Let's be honest. The literal backlash of this is that some other country, not necessarily one of our allies, but a country that's always looking for a reason. A 9/11 happened because of our bad behavior. People can say what they want to. They don't like our way of living. No, they don't like what we've been doing on the planet. Okay? And so for those who say I'm, being a lover of our enemies, and you can go kick rocks. At the end of the day, we got attacked on 9/11 because people hate what we're doing. They don't hate our way of life. And if what we're doing is part of our way of life, then yeah, you're right. They hate our way of life because our way of life sometimes ain't quite right. This exposes our troops and our military operatives across the globe to harm. It exposes our civilians who travel outside of the United States of America in harm's way. This administration doesn't get that. I don't think they even care. If they do get it, I don't think they even care. So that's the first thing that I'm going to talk about in this space. The safety factor. The second one is the humanity piece. Mayor Johnson's going to be on tomorrow, and I don't know if we'll talk about this or not, but what about the humanity? You got folks clinging to a boat. How about if they are as bad as you say they are? And this is how I look at it in terms of how stupid and how reckless and how racist and how biased, for those who don't want me to use the word stupid, this administration is top down, the whole regime. If you really were about solving problems and helping us understand how to be better, do better, understand the world better, maybe you go and you rescue those guys and you get information from them, Henry, that will help us better understand what our enemies are trying to do to us. But we got a bunch of damn knuckleheads as part of this regime that, whether they get that or not, that they certainly didn't act on it. The strategic approach would have been, let's get these guys out of the water. Let's take them to wherever we're going to take them, get them cleaned up, healthied up, and all the rest. And now we're going to pull them, we're going to drag information out of them the right way, not Abu Ghraib way. How about that? With all the military power and might and smarts we're supposed to have, how about that? But this is what happens when you've got dumb A people acting as leaders. This is what happens. Just kill them all. Reckless behavior puts us at risk. It exposes that the humanity that we're supposed to have ain't really there. And this is a dude, meaning Hegseth, that's when he was at a hearing a few weeks ago, talked about when it came to conversation around reading and what you read and what you follow. And he in a flippant way, to be a sarcastic son of a you-know-what, said the only thing, basically he was saying that the only book you should believe in is the Bible. Really? Okay, Pete, if that's the case, then how about showing some humanity? Because that word is all over the Bible. How about showing some discretion and some care for your fellow man, irrespective of where they are when it comes to their citizenship, their race, their creed, their color, their gender, and the country that they were born in? And so for those of you who are the trolls out there that want to get after me about what they're coming after our Americans and they were going to endanger, really? We're the big bad bully on the block, and we can't handle a situation like that other than kill them all. And the third thing that I want to say, and then we're going to grab a couple calls, is trust. I don't think that the Trump regime really gives a darn about trust. They don't. It seems based on their actions. But what about the trust? The trust from our allies. Get on the wrong side of this regime, and our allies wonder, well, maybe we, I don't know. Should we trust them? Or can we believe that if we had a military engagement, they were going to actually do the right thing in supporting us? So the trust part of this is the other thing that I feel in terms of the three things that came to mind for me, and I'm sure there'll be others. No trust. General Honoré talked about this the other day on Monday. He talked about the big thing that's missing right now when it comes to what's going on with our leaders is the lack of trust. And this right here is a perfect example. Lack of trust. How do we trust that our leaders, and we would call them leaders, how do we trust that this regime is going to be something that we can put any faith in when it comes to military engagement? We can't. They just proved it. They don't get a second chance in trying to, because see, this is where I go with this. Admit you made a mistake rather than trying to pretend like what you did was right. Certainly not righteous. Certainly not with any tinge of humanity. Admit that you were wrong. Because without that, there's no way people are going to trust you. I would say that there's some Republicans who are former military, some veterans, that saw this situation and realized that this was wrong. Absolutely. There's some Republicans out there that saw this situation, retired military veterans, that said that this was wrong. The Mark Kelly situation is an offshoot of this because he's speaking out. Other Democrats have spoken out. Illegal orders are illegal orders, y'all. There's no two ways about it. The UCMJ speaks to it loudly. It is one of the first things that you sign when you become sworn into the military. It's so that they know on the front end you're going to do the right thing under all circumstances, Henry. And safety, as I said, those three things. Safety for our troops and other folks who are part of our military operation throughout the world. Humanity, the lack thereof, and trust. Those three things, I think, are where we just completely blew it here. So, you know, I'm stuck on. I'm not stuck on this. I'm irked by it because we should know better. And for those who want to call in and text and email and troll about why don't I have this, that, or the other about some other situation, engagement, because I don't, because we're talking about this right now. That's why. If you want an answer to that, I don't need to engage with someone that's what aboutism. It's because I'm talking about this right now. That's the reason why. So if you need, you know, a little stroking of one's ego about that, there's my answer. And those who might want to send a text or an email to me to say, yeah, but you know, you're not supporting the government. These people were a threat to us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If they were a threat to us, we got some much bigger problems, y'all. If those folks that we shot out of the water were a threat to us, good Lord, imagine when we have a real threat. So, Henry, let's take a little bit of a break. I know we got to get ready for our next guest. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
He's not here to yell.
He's here to inform and maybe stir the pot.
This is Chew's Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Yeah, I know I had to get into that a little bit about this this attack, misuse of resources, all the things we want to talk about. But that's why we have smart people that we get to turn to and say, please help us understand this a little bit better. Please help us bring better, smarter, better educated, better experienced people to the table to serve in our federal government and our state governments, our local governments, because it does matter when we have people who know what the hell they're doing. With us this morning is someone that was been with us before, and I'm so honored to have her back and just be able to chat with her for the next few minutes. I could talk to her for hours because of the approach that she takes to who we should have in leadership roles. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the president of 314 Action, Shaughnessy Naughton. Good morning, Shaughnessy, and welcome back to Chew's Views on WCPT. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Richard. I am glad to be back, and it is a beautiful morning.
Yeah, it is. Smart people rule. God.
Well, let's go elect more of them.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Shaughnessy, I got to just say this to you. I'm not putting you on the spot, but I'm just going to say this. What a cluster, you know what, from some dumb A people with this terrible situation with this attack. I mean, I'm not to say that educated people wouldn't have done the same thing based on their cravenness, but good Lord, how awful to have that happen and then to try to dance around and pretend like, oh, we didn't know what was happening. Oh, we did know, but then it's just insanity, Shaughnessy. Give me your quick take on that, then we'll get into talking about some other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to recognize that this administration has a very clear pattern of being untruthful, and there's really almost no point in listening to how they revise and edit statements over and over again because it's just lies. Yeah,
without a doubt, just lies. I said three things that struck me, and one of them is safety of our troops. Other places in the world now, we've exposed ourselves to this, some potential retaliation or retribution from another country that's not an ally. Humanity certainly not showing itself in this case. And to your point, trust. We had retired Army General Russell Honore on Monday, and he talked about the biggest problem with leadership right now is so many people don't trust leadership. And I think this is a perfect example, and thank you for reminding us of that. So, Shaughnessy, go ahead. You got something to say. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was just, with Secretary or with Hegseth, it's just, it looks like a child running around pretending he's a military leader and really doesn't understand the full depth of what is actually involved with overseeing the greatest military force on the earth, but one that deserves to be respected and certainly should be respecting the rules of war.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Shaughnessy, 314 is a great organization, 314 Action. And real quickly, just to remind everybody real quickly, I don't want to take your story about the organization, and then we'll get into some specifics that are happening right now that you guys have been talking about. Tell us about 314 Action.
Sure. So 314 Action, we are the only organization working to elect scientists and doctors to public office from school board and city council up through state legislatures and the federal level, with the thinking that we really benefit by having that diversity of experience, those fact-based, data-driven scientists and doctors in office, and recognizing that it doesn't happen on its own. So we work to break down some of those barriers that non-traditional candidates face when running for public office and elect scientists and doctors. And this fall, we continued that path of success in local elections around the country.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, we haven't talked in a little bit, but certainly November 4th was a warning shot, and a good one to the Republican Party. Not to say that they don't have some folks on their side that have medical degrees or other scientific degrees on their list, but November 4th I think was a good sign that we're moving in the right direction. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our 314 Action endorsed candidates won about 70% of their races this fall, flipping red to blue districts across the country. In school board races where our candidates were running against the Moms for Liberty endorsed candidates, which you're probably familiar with, are big fans of banning books and anti-LGBTQ policies. We won all of those races, and you know, some pretty important state legislative races in New Jersey and Virginia that helped to bolster Democratic majorities in both those states.
Without a doubt. So let's talk a little bit about the, I won't say the elephant in the room, but certainly the thing that is troubling for so many people right now when it comes to healthcare and what's happening with this vote that's going to take place. And hopefully, as Minority Leader Jeffries just put out, if we get 4 Republicans to do the right thing, just 4, which there should be 40, in my opinion, but do the right thing, then we can, you know, we can move forward in terms of the subsidies and the tax credits as it relates to the ACA. Talk a little bit about that and what you see, why it's so important that this takes place and that the Republicans, in this case, join with the Democrats and get this thing done.
Sure. I mean, the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies have really made health care and health insurance more affordable for millions of American families. I'm here in Pennsylvania, and one of my neighbors was saying his policy for the same silver level policy went from $1,400 a month to next year it's at $2,800 a month. That is just unaffordable, and that is because of a number of factors. But one of the most direct way that Congress could address this is by extending those tax subsidies right now and not putting Americans' health in peril. I mean, mental and physical. I mean, the idea of people losing something that they have come to rely on is really tragic. And it is something that we have been trying to hold Republicans accountable for and making sure that this is front and center in people's minds and that people understand who is responsible for this really unforgivable act against the American people.
Kennedy, right now, is definitely showing his, showing his more than mediocrity, but just his incapacity to be in this role, which impacts so many people's lives when it comes to health. He's not a scientist. I mean, at best, he's a person with a law degree. But you know, this is a guy that doesn't know what he's talking about. He's giving in this role. I mean, I can have my opinion on this show, and I do my best to make sure that everything that comes out of my mouth has a connection to fact and reality. But I'm not the head of, you know, Department of Health and Human Services. I don't, you know, I want somebody with a medical degree, multiple medical degrees, and openness to science. Verifiable data and science in this role. And here we are dealing with him, but we're trying to get more, you know, you guys talked about this recently. We're trying to get more doctors involved and more medical professionals involved in this fight against what he's spewing out to the country. Talk a little bit about that, if you can.
Yeah, well, I mean, the RFK Jr.'s assaults on public health and science in this country have really been a great motivator for scientists and physicians to step up to run for office. I mean, it is widespread and deep, the chaos that he is raining down on public health and on the health of this country. Today, the Vaccine Advisory Panel is going to meet to discuss removing the recommendation for the hepatitis B vaccine for infants. And it really is a way to tell the story of the RFK approach to public health, where they pick out the piece of data that they want to find and ignore everything else. The hepatitis B vaccine became a universal vaccine recommendation in 1991. And since then, hepatitis B cases among children has plummeted by 99%. That is a fact. And that is a very persuasive data point as to why this was an effective vaccine that doesn't have any side effects. But this is what this administration does, and this is why it is so important that we elect more scientists and doctors to Congress, to state legislatures, to governorships all across the country. And this year we do have a record number of doctors and scientists running for Congress going into the 2026 midterms, when we have an opportunity to win back a chamber of the House and be able to start putting some oversight that the Republican majority has refused to do in this administration.
Yeah, I mean, the Democratic doctors are really just kind of pouring into election, or pouring into politics, I should say. I was saying earlier, and I didn't have the numbers fresh in my mind, but we've got like 20-some medical professionals in the House, but only like a third of those are Democrats. Is that right?
That sounds about right, yeah. Yeah, I think traditionally Republicans have and continue to run against the Affordable Care Act and the protections that provides for patients and American consumers, whereas we've seen Democratic doctors run in support of making healthcare more affordable and accessible, of supporting access to abortion services and making sure that we are bolstering our public health programs and not undermining them. And I do think that healthcare is going to be the number one issue in the 2026 midterms, because it is front and center on everyone's mind. And, even looking back to the shutdown, it drew a very clear contrast between what the Republicans in Washington stand for and what the Democrats are fighting for. And we need to make sure that we are getting that message out to every corner of the country.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you back on the show. And we're going to do it again and again when we get into 2026, Shaughnessy. Because listen, folks need to know about you and the organization because of the specifics of what your charter is in terms of bringing more scientists into political conversation and into elected offices. I think that when it comes to the climate, when it comes to medical care, so many things. The more that we have people that are experienced and that know what they're talking about. Just because there's a number of Republicans that have, or a larger number of Republicans in the House that have, have a medical degree, doesn't mean that they're wielding that power in a way that is effective and right for the country. So we want to have people that have that background and that experience, but also can wield that knowledge and be powerful with it for the greater good of the country, not to pull back. Because I've read some stories where some of the doctors that are in the House on the Republican side are against abortion. They're against women's health care and things of that nature. So to me, that's a person, just because he or she has a medical degree doesn't necessarily mean that they're down with what's right for the greater number of people in the country. So we want the right ones in place, and hopefully they're going to be on our side.
Well, that's right. And I would just draw your attention to Senator Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor and was really the deciding vote in confirming RFK Jr., even when it was very clear that this was the agenda that we would get from RFK Jr. of undermining public health programs, of undermining confidence in vaccine programs and protocols, and just the slashing of research funding that is really the future, is where we get the advancements in health and medicine that keep Americans healthy and that have made things like cancer recoverable diseases and no longer death sentences. And the fact that they are undermining this 50-plus year success story of America's investment in science and research and education is incredibly short-sighted and hard to see what the upside is, because there isn't one.
Yeah, not even close. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking with the president of 314 Action, Shaughnessy Naughton. Shaughnessy, let me ask you this question about vaccines. Why do vaccines work? And then as part of that question, another question would be, and why, in your experience, is there such an opposition toward vaccines? Help us try to understand it a little bit. I saved that one for you.
Thanks for that one. I think it's really complicated. I mean, I don't know if you're a parent, but for parents, obviously the most important thing in their life is their children. And when something happens, they look for answers. And when there's not a clear answer, it does open up pathways to looking, going down a rabbit hole. And, there has been an increase in autism diagnoses in the last 20, 30 years. But there hasn't been any study that's shown there's a connection between that and vaccines, and actually quite the opposite. So, I think when you're talking about the very skeptical people against vaccines like RFK Jr., I think the obvious place to look is follow the money. And he has made millions of dollars in his career convincing people that vaccines that have been tested to be and proven to be effective and safe aren't. And that's just a sad reality, and that is what we are dealing with having him as the head of HHS.
Yeah, that's just crazy. One of the things that a lot of people are I think, paying attention to is the CDC's, I don't know if we'll call it reversal, but I guess you could say reverse, in its stance on vaccines. Chime in a little bit on that and tell us what you're seeing there.
Again, it's cherry picking data that isn't that doesn't tell the full story. RFK Jr. has had a campaign against vaccines for decades, so it should not be a surprise that he is using his platform as the health secretary to continue to undermine Americans' trust and ability to access vaccines. It's a really dangerous path. I mean, I pointed to the hepatitis B vaccine and just the direct correlation between universal administration to newborns and a 99% reduction in children getting hepatitis B. You can look at the data since we've had the polio vaccine and the MMR vaccine, and just the reductions in the cases of measles and polio. And, the thing that I think people need to remember, because for so many of us, we've never seen measles because of the effectiveness of the vaccines, is that it is more than just the fever and rash. There can be lifetime consequences to having measles, that result in death in the immediate, but also, years later. And it's just such an unforced error that we would be not encouraging people to vaccinate their children with vaccines that have been proven to be safe and effective.
Yeah, and I worry about this oftentimes, Shaughnessy, and want to get your take on it. Where do you think religion, or in this case, Christian nationalism in America in the last decade, for example, has played, or what role has it played, or how has it fit into this conversation around how we navigate through vaccines?
Well, it's kind of an interesting alliance with the vaccine skeptical or hesitant crowd, is that you have people on the left and right taking on this, maybe call it ideology, and I do think it is more of an emotional decision than one based in facts or data. And so how do we address that? How do we talk to parents that are skeptical to make sure they are making the right decisions for their children? And I think that's where pediatricians and their local health professionals are going to be the most effective, especially right now when so much confusion is coming from the federal level as far as the safety of vaccines. And I don't envy pediatricians right now of what it must be like with parents, getting such mixed messages and false messages from the health secretary and President Trump. But I do admire them for doing this important work. And again, it's why we're seeing a lot of doctors step up to run this year, because they realize there's only so much they can accomplish from their exam room. If they really want to benefit and better the lives of their patients, they need to take that step beyond and have a larger canvas to work from by serving in public office, and bringing that background as a doctor really does bring a unique perspective. I mean, they spend years going to medical school and perfecting their craft because of their care for humans. And so they do have a lot of trust with the American people. We've seen that in survey after survey. And that does extend to their trust on issues beyond just their field of expertise, because doctors and physicians are really looked at by the majority of Americans as truth tellers. And that's really what we need from our elected officials, especially during this Trump administration.
Yeah, trust is a big component there. And when we go to the doctor, if it's news that we don't want to hear, weren't expecting to hear, we take it and then we go, okay, now let's come up with a solution to resolve this issue. And I think that's probably one of the most understated parts of going to the doctor, is that it may not be what you want to hear, but at least you know now what it is and how we can go forward to fix that issue that was discovered, whatever the ailment may be, et cetera, or the injury may be. So there is the other side of that, of course, is the truth that you just talked about, Shaughnessy. Thank you for kind of breaking it down that way. Let me read something to you. One of our listeners just said this when we're talking about doctors in politics. Yet another example, quote, MAGA doctors in Congress, that the ideological difference is not one of intelligence, but of values buried in personality, namely whether self-regard is balanced by the other regard. Wow. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, and I mean, and that is why our criteria for support are Democratic doctors and scientists that, support the scientific consensus on climate change and want to do something about it, that support legal access to full health services for women, including abortion services. And, and it really does present a real contrast between when you look at the Republican doctors in Congress versus the Democratic doctors. And, there are areas where they can align to work on issues. Traditionally, they had on vaccine education. But in this moment, when everything is being politicized by this administration, and particularly trust in vaccines is being undermined, you're not seeing that the way we used to. And it's why it does matter who represents us and who we have in Congress.
Yeah, it definitely does. Shaughnessy, it is always great to have you on the show, and I look forward to getting you back on with some regularity when we get into 2026, and largely because of the work that 314 Action is doing and bringing more scientists and folks that know stuff into politics. So I'm going to book you now to say, yes, Richard, I'll be back on. Let's talk about why it's important to have the candidates in place that are going to be ones that can help us move the needle forward and be better served with folks that know a little bit about something. So I'm excited about you being with us more in 2026. Let our folks know.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, dear.
No, I was going to say, well, it's always great to speak with you, and any chance I have to talk about why we need to elect more scientists and doctors, I always welcome that opportunity. So thank you.
Right on to that. Shaughnessy, how can folks follow you, get involved, and be more aware of what you and 314 Action are doing?
Our website is 314action.org, as well as on all the social medias. And I'm always happy to hear from folks, especially scientists and doctors thinking about running, or people who want to help doctors and scientists running. So please reach out to us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being with us. And we look forward to having you back again sooner than later. Shaughnessy Naughton from 314 Action, guys. Thanks for being with us. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks, Richard.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right, Henry, there we go. I see that we have someone that chimed in. Okay, we'll sit tight then. Guys, follow the folks at 314 Action. Shaughnessy Naughton is really a big voice in this space right now. And why it's important. Think about this for a second. Trust. I mean, I didn't know that she was gonna talk about that as it relates to what's going on with our with the CDC and with, of course, the HHS. I didn't know that, but when I talked about the military action recently, and this that's coming out right now, trust I think a lot of trust is lost when we misuse or recklessly use, or in this case, lied our way through use of military power, and that's not a good thing. But as Shaughnessy was saying about having people who know what they're talking about, have the experience, the scientific knowledge. We're more a technology-based society right now. So why shouldn't we have more people in elected offices on all levels that have a belief in science and understanding technologies and understanding the things that are good tools to advance our society? Religion is misused. I'm going to read this. This also came from one of our listeners as we wrap up today. Religion is misused by MAGA in a perverse attempt to legitimize their hatred. And the person goes on to say that, some of the leaders right now are actually not real Christians, but bigots. And I would dare say that there is no lies being told there. It's always great to be with you guys. Thanks this morning to Shaughnessy for hanging out with us. And thanks to Dan Clare from the Disabled American Veterans Foundation for being with us as well. Serving the community, taking care of people, that's something we all can do. Stay tuned, guys, for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.